For the past week, the game had been causing me nothing but trouble. It roamed around my property with complete impunity, sneaking into the warehouses at night through broken windows and devouring the food that I had stored there. Initially, I put up with it because my land was so vast and the forests were so dense that tracking down game was difficult. However, after it had raided the third stock, I decided to take matters into my own hands. My goal was to locate and eliminate the game no matter what it took. Not only would it have practical benefits, but it would also provide me with the long-forgotten excitement of ancient hunting. So I dedicated an entire week to the task and arrived on my property armed with a gun. I was afraid that the game had moved elsewhere while I was gone, but during my rounds of the depots, I became convinced that it had not. Another ruined depot provided evidence of this. As usual, a broken window greeted me, and sacks of cereal had been mercilessly torn apart. The remnants of the recent feast stirred anger within me. These lands were mine, and no creature had the right to terrorize the structures that belonged to me. Frustrated, I left the warehouse and began searching for clues that could lead me to the game that had lost its sense of shame. The task at hand was no easy feat. The game must have been aware, through its own unique instincts, that it was being hunted. Undoubtedly, it was quite cunning. Recently, the first snowfall had blanketed the woods, making it easy for me to spot the imprints left behind by the game. However, the tracks were perplexing. They circled around the same location and repeatedly led to a small river flowing between the trees, where they abruptly ended. At times, they vanished entirely on a level ground. Apparently, the game had a knack for climbing onto the lower branches of the trees. Despite its abilities, it was unlikely that the game could climb very well. Most of the tracks were still distinct on the ground, which worked to my advantage. After spending several days wandering through the silent woods, I became more acquainted with the thought process of the game I was pursuing. I slowly began to unravel the complexities that governed its behavior. No longer was I fooled by its deceptive tactics of circling in one spot or taking sharp turns designed to throw me off. I started to pinpoint the locations where the game would rest, typically under the shade of tall trees, and where they preferred to roam. As a result, the hunting area was slowly shrinking. On the fourth day, I caught a glimpse of the game for the first time, although it was from a significant distance, and it promptly darted towards the river. Without a doubt, it was now 100 times more vigilant than before. On the sixth day, the hunt came to an unexpected end. Exhausted from a fruitless half-day of searching in the woods, I decided to head towards the nearest untouched storehouse to grab a bite to eat. To my dismay, I discovered that the game had also paid a visit, just half an hour before my arrival. The tracks in the snow were visible and not yet concealed by a hard crust that quickly forms at low temperatures. Nevertheless, I had a genuine opportunity to catch up with the game and was not about to let it escape. I raised my rifle and stealthily pursued the trail, keeping my eyes peeled ahead at the dark and shadowy thickets. Despite the game's cunning, this time it failed to sense the danger sneaking up on it, its instincts letting it down. I found it in a deep clearing within the forest, where the trees stood so close that I had to squeeze through the trunks. I noticed a white speck that stood out sharply against the dull background of the branches and began cautiously closing in on it. At first, I managed to approach unnoticed, but then I accidentally stepped on a thin frozen branch that snapped under my weight. The game bird startled, momentarily turning towards me, and our eyes met for an instant. Then it sprinted away, crashing through the trees. I ran as fast as I could, knowing that after days of fruitless hunting, it would be a crime to miss such a glorious opportunity. Fortunately, the trees slowed down the game as much as they did me, so it couldn't gain much speed. As the trees thinned out, I knew it was safe to take out my gun. I slung my rifle off my back and took aim. My breathing was unsteady, hindering my concentration, but I fired anyway, and a heart-rending screech echoed through the forest. I had wounded the game. Although I felt a pang of empathy for the wounded game, I knew that I had to finish what I started. This creature had caused destruction on my land, and it was my responsibility to put an end to its reign of terror. I steeled myself and pulled the trigger. The gun went off with a deafening roar, and the game's body went limp. A rush of conflicting emotions flooded through me: relief that the hunt was over, regret for taking a life, and a sense of accomplishment for completing my task. As I stood there, staring at the lifeless body of the game, I realized that hunting was not just about the thrill of the chase or the satisfaction of a successful kill. It was also about the responsibility of stewardship, of ensuring the balance between humans and nature. It was a solemn duty that required a deep understanding of the natural world and a respect for the creatures that inhabit it. I took a deep breath and began the long trek back to civilization, feeling both exhilarated and contemplative. The hunt had taught me a valuable lesson about the delicate balance between humans and nature, and the importance of preserving that balance for generations to come. I firmly reminded myself that it was merely a game, not just a man. I squeezed the trigger, and the thundering sound of the shot echoed through the crisp winter air. But unlike the initial shot, there was no accompanying sound.